This is Suits and Booth, breaking the chains of silence. I'm your host, Tshai Wright. And this space right here, this is a space where truth and transformation, where silence ends and stories rise. Today we're talking about something that hits deep. Love. Not the fairy tale kind, the kind that burns, that breaks you open, and ultimately teaches you who you are. My guest today is Gianni Adamo, a licensed mental health counselor, trauma-informed relationship coach, and the author of the book From Love Trauma to Fearless Love. She also helps people heal from toxic relationships and reclaim their power to love again without fear. Gianni, thank you for being here today. Thank you for helping me break the chains of silence.
I love this. What an amazing topic, Tshai, and congratulations to your new show. I am so honored to be here and be one of your first guests.
Thank you.
It is such an honor.
Thank you, Gianni. Let's toast to that.
Yes. Ching, ching.
Thank you, Gianni. Now, I'm honored, so honored to have you. And let's talk a little bit about your book, because when I saw the title, From Trauma to Fearless Love, it really resonated with me because I just want to know how do we get from trauma to fearless love? And talk to us a little bit about what that is.
Okay, so the book title is From Love Trauma to Fearless Love, and it's on Amazon. It was actually an Amazon bestseller when it was released back in 2018. It's already been almost 7 years. This is the anniversary right now. I launched it for Halloween.
Oh wow! So congratulations, happy anniversary!
Thank you
on that.
Yes.
And Gianni, I just found out that you're a fellow Scorpio, and the three stages, and one of them is a Phoenix. So thank you. So
Yes.
we're sisters in arms here. So welcome again, and thank you again for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, the fall is definitely our season. Those of us who are Scorpios, but coming back to From Love Trauma to Fearless Love, I wrote that book coming out of my own journey of love trauma or betrayal trauma, where love gets turned upside down. So everything that we believe to be loving ends up being a form of being exploited by those that we are in relationship in. So it took me by surprise that the book did so well, and I received a whole bunch of awards. But the topic I believe that you're bringing to light today is breaking the silence.
Absolutely.
And Suits and Boots, I think, is an amazing title for this podcast. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about how that came about.
Absolutely. So for me, I'm from the Caribbean. I'm a Jamaican at heart. You know, I came to America when I was about 14 years old. And any one of us that are Caribbean, we know that there's a lot of silencing. There's a lot of, in patois, go sit down, pitney, children should be seen and not heard. I was a very precocious, curious child, and I got shot down a lot. So I kind of created an internal space for myself where I kind of armored myself in clothing. So I use that as my armor away from the silence, away from that trauma growing up as a child, because the child's world was just very much alone. It was very lonely. Mm-hmm. So I created a coping mechanism, so to speak. And so now it's standing up in truth and transformation, mm-hmm. and breaking out of trauma. And that's the acronym that I put here for Suits and Boots. It's kind of like a call to arms for a lot of us that have been traumatized, and, the effects of it, we don't even know what the effects are, mm-hmm. right? So something happened to me that I kind of related back to my childhood here. So I really created this as a safe space, really for us to be able to speak out on the traumas that occurred that we were not able to speak on, mm-hmm. when we're younger, when we're in a position that we're not as powerful. For example, with a parent-child relationship, maybe it's a boss, mm-hmm. It's just someone that is in authority, and that's kind of like pushing you down and breaking you down. And I kind of I was with my high school sweetheart for years, and I had a little bit of trauma silencing throughout that relationship that kind of stemmed from that childhood. So I do want this space to be a way for people to have their stories told and to help them kind of break out of the trauma. So that's really my intention there with SUITT BOOT, the long version, right?
Yeah. So you have a story to tell, don't you?
I think we all do, and I do want us in arms to all tell our stories, and this is just a starting point for me to tell my story and for me to hear everyone's story. And I want to hear your story, and I want us to be sisters in arms together and suit up and boot up and fight trauma and break the chains of silence. And that, let's go back to fearless love. So for some of us out there, we don't exactly know what that term means. So let's tell us what love trauma is and elaborate on that.
Okay, so love trauma or relational trauma or relationship trauma or betrayal trauma, they all mean the same thing. It's when you're in a relationship where you depend on, you rely on your survival, your source of, let's say, primary love figures, like a parent or a partner. They betray your trust. If there has been a betrayal of trust in any of these primary relationships, it creates an internal conflict where love and fear get fused. And now all of a sudden we're left like, we take 2 steps forward, or a step forward and 2 steps back. And we call it like self-sabotage, and we don't know what's going on with us. We're like in this space of repeating cycles and doing the same thing over and over again and not getting the results we're looking for. And then we're always also attracting a lot of these individuals that keep betraying our trust, and they're not worthy of what we're offering them.
Yes. And Gianni, let me ask you. So, what are the effects? Some of the effects that love trauma creates for parties that are experiencing that?
Okay, so they're a heck of a lot, because if you are, let's say, if you do have a diagnosis or if you have betrayal trauma, it's going to affect pretty much every aspect of your life and your personhood. It affects you cognitively. So you start with obsessive thoughts and patterns in your brain that you're like, why are these thoughts recurring and why can't I get rid of them? So it takes a lot of work and energy for you to actually like shove them out of your brain. But they keep coming
absolutely.
back. Yes.
Now, let me ask you, and so for me, I have this thing where I have a germ, and I'm using air quotes, a germ. I'm a germaphobe, right? And I think that I created that. Like, I go out to eat, I use plastic utensils, right? And so growing up, the household was full of people and everybody was touching everything. And so I believe that I created that where I use plastic utensils to have something as my own. Could that be like a love trauma, a betrayal trauma type of coping mechanism that I created there with that quote unquote OCD type of situation?
Exactly. That goes into more like an obsessive compulsive, either personality disorder or of just obsessive compulsive behaviors. And that is all under anxiety disorders. So yes, so once there is a trauma is another form of anxiety disorders. So if you have post-traumatic stress, which would be the PTSD that we're talking about, like the trauma piece, or you develop the obsessive compulsive personality disorder or obsessive compulsive disorders, this is all coming out of anxiety. You're no longer feeling safe where you would have been feeling safe prior to a situation. But it usually takes time for these symptoms to develop. So it's not overnight. So in addition to cognitive distortions, we have emotional deregulation, we have shame, we have guilt, we've got fear. Girl, we've got a whole bunch of things.
We have a lot going on. There.
We have then relationship issues. We don't trust when we should be trusting, and then we do trust where we shouldn't be trusting. It becomes upside down and crazy.
Absolutely, everything flips on its head, really and truly. Yes.
When it comes to trauma, our reality has been turned on its head, and then this is what I'm saying, like. You take a step forward and then you're taking 2 back and you're like, what is going on? You have to start examining like there's something wrong.
And now let me ask you, so some of that betrayal trauma So for myself, and relating back to when I was younger, I was disillusioned that I was my dad's only child, right? And so I found out at like 9 or 10 that I had a brother. And I was told by a cousin that I had a brother. And when my cousin was kind of explaining this to me, because my dad was my hero, he hung the moon for me. And so when I was about 7 or 8, my brother showed up on my doorstep.
Wow.
But my dad was not there for me to ask him questions. He had already migrated to the US. And fast forward to 2018, I was with my high school sweetheart. We were married, and then he told me that he got another woman pregnant throughout that.
Wow.
And it kind of brought me back to the moment that my brother showed up on my doorstep. And I lost it. I thought I had handled my brother or that trauma, but it seems as though it was just suppressed. What are your thoughts on that?
You repeated the generational cycle there. You stayed loyal to a system that was not loyal to you.
Yeah. Oh, yes. So very true, because it's a lonely way. When I thought about, I wasn't getting anything but silence.
Yes.
Betrayal. Don't speak on it. It was a family secret, and it consumed me. And so much so that I had to forget about it, so to speak. But I never dealt with it because it came back up and it was rehashed in 2018. And it just was like I was dating my dad.
Wow. Yes. So you hit the nail on the head when you said you were silenced. The family passes on these generational cycles and curses.
Oh, yeah.
Through silence.
Absolutely. And that's part of the reason I created Suits and Boots. I did not even realize I was silenced. It's the silence, right? So to speak, because I thought, oh, wow, I felt a lot of shame. I internalized, I felt it was my fault. Afterwards, my dad, he wanted a son. So I felt replaced after my brother came into my life. And that triggered something for me back in 2018 when my high school sweetheart, my husband of, at the time of 15 years, we were together 32.
Wow.
He told me that he has a child. And here again, I just felt like I was being replaced. And I literally mentally lost it. That was all consuming. I lost myself really in that. And it was really something that I think my family, that like cycle was created in that. And it was very lonely.
Yes. So when we are silenced, what happens is we now start to attribute love to disconnection, to silence, to sacrifice, and a whole bunch of other things that are not necessarily what love truly is. So at that point, you were kind of blinded.
Right. Yes.
You now became unseen.
Absolutely. Once again.
And this is now like what we call self-abandonment. So you were abandoned from reality, from both parents, keeping this lie from you or this truth from you. And now all of a sudden we continue to do the same in our next pattern, in our next relationship. We're self-abandoning, keeping the lies, being blinded, and not being seen. But the first person we need to start seeing is ourselves and being honest and truthful with ourselves.
Absolutely.
That there is something going on, and I'm not really like in touch here with the real reality of what's going on.
So now let me ask you, what are some of the ways that, we can break the chains and we can start to heal ourselves from this betrayal trauma, this love trauma, relationship trauma, as we identify it? Tell the audience ways that we can break out and how we can start to do it.
For me, because I went through a whole big relationship betrayal trauma. I was involved with a sexual predator.
Oh, wow.
Like a very highly narcissistic individual. And it wasn't until the end of our relationship that like he ended up raping me and then abandoning me. I ended up in a 4-year pretty much of trauma.
Oh, wow.
That's when I then started writing the book. I also got drawn to the Argentine tango. And of course, I went to a ton of therapy and a ton of reading on the subjects of personality disorders, such as sociopaths and narcissists and all of these toxic people and behaviors and sex addicts. And what is all this stuff? And I'm like, what is all this stuff? Like all this stuff that I had no clue about. So I finally became like, got clued in. Like there's another world going on here.
Absolutely.
Beyond the really cute little rosy colored sunglasses that I was wearing, which is lovely because we have these beautiful big hearts. We think everybody's going to do the right thing.
Absolutely, yes.
And then we find out that not everybody does the right thing. Not everybody has integrity. They don't even know what the word is. And so we're holding ourselves up to such a standard of ethics for healthy relationships, and other people are just not doing that.
Absolutely.
At all. So, okay. So what I personally did was, that was very empowering for me, was writing my story, writing my truth. I also, in order to combat all of that PTSD and all that anxiety, I got drawn to the Argentine tango.
Oh, wow. So, that's intriguing.
Yeah, the body's important to incorporate your body into your healing. We cannot do the healing and like leaving the body like untended to. So for a lot of women or men, yoga is another form of like healing,
like
for
meditation
them.
And healing.
Yes.
And for me, I took up golfing, right? And that is how we met, right?
I love that.
Yes. So that was one of the things that I took up, that part of my healing. So what I did on this journey, because as I said, I was losing it. My high school sweetheart, he was my best friend. We trauma bonded together. He has similar upbringings as I do, right? And so when that happened, as I told you, I felt replaced and everything. So I started taking walks on the beach. I lost weight. I was heavier. And so when I first started, just walking on the beach, it was just very calming, very relaxing. I would listen to a lot of self-help books, like adult children of narcissistic parents or immature, parents or whatever it is. And it kind of it opened up my eyes and made me feel like I wasn't crazy, so to speak, because that is one of the ways that I think I was being silenced whenever I would try to hold my parents accountable, or even my ex accountable, because he kind of took on that cycle of parental figures, right? And we have to kind of break out of that and everything. But they would tell you, oh, you're crazy for thinking that. Oh, you're being ridiculous. That kind of like gaslighting, right? And I was beginning to believe it. I was beginning to believe, because I was the only one. I felt like everybody around me was saying to me, oh, you're crazy. And not only that, my mom had experienced infidelity. A child was brought on her doorstep. And when my experience happened with the child from my ex, my mom pretty much expected me and my entire family to just accept it and move in the way that she moved and the way she handled it. And when I didn't, it was kind of like, oh, you think you're better than us. You think because you're a lawyer now and whatever, you think you're better than the rest of the family. And I was beginning to think that I was conducting myself in that way because I was trying to heal myself. Right. And for the longest time, it was kind of like they drew me in, they kept drawing me back in. Every time I tried to get out, they just kept pulling me back in. Right. So it was very, very difficult. So I did long walks on the beach. I would camp out there, listen to books, listen to that. And then I found out a golf and ladies executive golf, and met some wonderful women that helped me, help to break the chains of the silence and the chains of the trauma. So, that's one thing. So
speaking up and breaking the silence. So education, obviously we both did the same thing about reading, educating, listening to podcasts, audiobooks, whatever, reading them. So we have to understand the topic that we're on, the people that were involved, the people that we've been attracting into our world. So that's important, to be able to understand that piece. And then the other piece is breaking the silence through the writing, through speaking out, you creating SUITT and BOOT. That's your way of speaking out, breaking the silence. And Yes. Usually the family members aren't like applauding us.
Oh yeah, I mean that's an understatement, right? So to speak. They definitely did not.
They're not throwing us a party.
They're definitely. We are the. I felt like I was a villain in my own story, right? I was the villain. I felt like Elphaba in Wicked.
Yes. We have to find our tribe. So it's important. This is why it's important to find like legs, the ladies executive golf.
Absolutely.
Or find other groups. For me, it was the dance community here in South Florida.
Right, like the tango.
Yes, because I was very much involved 7 days a week dancing the Argentine tango.
Wow.
And performing and blah, blah, blah. So, so I had my
amazing.
Tribe, and you're finding your tribe. So it's important that when we're breaking free to find our tribe, because usually our family is anti you're speaking out, because it brings shame upon the family.
Absolutely.
Oh, there's a subject we haven't touched upon.
Shame. Oh yes, I felt a lot of shame, and it's trying to even break out and to take out the silence or whatever. I was, oh, you're doing that? I can't believe it. You're doing that to the family. It was just that type of a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, for even standing up in my truth and trying to do that transformation that I'm trying to break out of. It was like I was a villain. I was just shamed. So that it's so important that it goes hand in hand with the silence and the shame as well.
And it's funny because I've been working with like the Tony Robbins organization and group and getting all this training for the last 2 years.
Beautiful.
Thank you. For the last 2 years, because I'm doing like for the leadership coaching part. And for the last 2 years, I've been involved in all this. And what I've realized is but these real high performers who are like billionaires, they're still operating under the same message that shame brings to us. And it's, I am not enough. This is the message that shame brings to us. I am damaged goods. I don't know enough. I don't do enough. I'm not enough.
Yeah.
So even these like high performers of this world, transforming the world as we know it, are still operating from this. So we're all in good company.
Oh yeah. Listen, this is great company to be in, right?
This is good company.
High achievers.
Yes.
And so yeah.
Resiliency.
Absolutely.
So this is where resiliency comes from. So you're not alone when you're feeling like I am damaged goods. I'm a survivor of sexual trauma. I've always believed that there was something wrong with me.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So the key here is understanding this is part of our humanity, but you know enough. You are enough and you do enough. You have to just kind of remind yourself there, and then you choose your path.
We are enough. And so are you, everyone out there. We are enough. We have built enough. We're putting enough in ourselves. We're all enough to be whatever we need to be. We can all break the chains. We can all do it. If I can do it, you can do it, right? And even so, and speaking of not being enough, like I went through leukemia, right? Right on the cusp of when I was going through this betrayal trauma, and I was alone in that too. I had a mom and dad that were alive, sisters, brothers, nieces, and nephew. And at the time, I was still married to my high school sweetheart. But I went to all my doctor's appointments alone. I had no one holding my hands or anything like that. But I just kept on thinking that, no one loves me. No one cares enough about me. And if they're not going to be here in the sickness and in those times, they will never be there. And that's part of why I'm alone. And no one is coming to rescue me. I have to rescue myself, right? And some of those self-help books that I read, they talked about the childhood silencing and everything. And some of them recommended reparenting yourself.
Yes.
Right? And I think that I've been trying to reparent myself without knowing that that's what I was doing, right? Because it was consuming me that I felt like I had no one, like I was unlovable. Right? And I think that's how they want you to feel, so that they could keep their thumb over you, to keep the control and to keep continuing that betrayal stage, right? And so it was very difficult, because for a long time I thought I was not enough and no one cared for me. And if you care for yourself, that is enough. And that is really what I learned. And that is the reason I created Suits and Boots, right? Because we all want a space to be seen, to be heard, and to feel like we're someone, we're important.
But it starts with us.
It does.
We have to see ourselves and what we want and need, desire, and that's all important. And no longer like shove that down and let me go help somebody else first. We got to go take care of ourselves first.
Absolutely.
That is like the hardest switch for us.
Yes.
Because we have a lot of love and compassion and we give it all away. And somehow eventually we have to learn, we don't have to keep giving all that away. We can keep that for ourselves. We can grow, we could expand. And then from the abundance, we give, not from the scarcity.
Oh, that's very interesting, because if you're in famine or drought, right, you can't feed others, you know, and they say, this has been a very interesting thing that whenever I'm traveling, right, you put your mask on first before you assist anyone else. Because if you're suffocating, you can't breathe, how can you help someone else, right? So it's always having to take care of you first before you can help others.
That's correct.
Because if you're burnt out and you're sourced out, you can't even help yourself. How can you be the best version of yourself to help anyone else?
Exactly. I think we lose sight of that, like the first two commandments. I think some in the New Testament, there was someone who had asked the Lord, you know, what is the greatest commandment? And, or what are, you know, how am I keeping the commandments? And the Lord said, love your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and then love your neighbor as yourself.
As yourself, yeah.
But we kind of forget that that's an equation. We tend to be sacrificial and we tend to like forget about ourselves. And then we pride ourselves in being sacrificial.
Right.
And being the martyr.
Yes, the martyr.
Yeah,
absolutely.
the martyr.
Absolutely.
And that all has to shatter. These are roles and masks that don't belong to us. These are survival strategies that do not work. They keep us entrapped in an imprisonment.
Yeah. It's like the system that is no longer serving us that you were talking about earlier. We continue to put into a system that is not serving us. And we have to start serving ourselves instead of being in service to others, which there's nothing wrong with being in service to others. It's beautiful and it's lovely, the concept of it, but we're not in service to ourselves first. How can we help? Again, going back to putting on the mask on yourself first before you put the mask on someone else. If we have nothing to give, you know, how can we help? There's just nothing there left to give. So, you know, that's very important that we try to put into ourselves before we put into others.
That's correct. Yes. Breaking the cycle of silence means no more self-abandonment. No more self-abandonment. We have to put ourselves first. It is not selfish. It is not selfish.
And that's what we're told a lot, that we're being selfish if we're trying to take care of us, you know, and that word selfishness, you know, it comes off with such a negative connotations. Self-care. That is so important, right? It's not selfish, it's self-care.
That's how I start my day. I start my day always with me in mind. My workout, if I'm meditating or praying, if I am going to the beach and maybe just taking a nice walk, I always start with feeding me first.
Yes.
I feed my soul first.
Beautiful.
My body first. And then I address the rest of the world.
Absolutely. That is
Starting
beautiful.
Starting with me first.
Absolutely. That is beautiful self-care.
Then I have the resources
to give,
the abundance to give to others.
Absolutely.
But if we start out with an alarm going, and I don't even use an alarm, I hate alarms. I do not. So I allow myself to wake up naturally. I've already, like, my brain is retrained for that. And I leave like the window shade a little open so that the sunlight comes in, so that starts to signal that it's time to wake up. And that's how I start my day, with peace and love and compassion. And that actually gives me the energy to like go deal with, you know,
whatever face your day, you know,
and all like the clients with all of their traumas and
absolutely
and drama. It's a trauma situation.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
and you have to be the best version of yourself in order to help anyone else. You cannot help someone if you're not mentally okay.
That's correct.
I was always a fixer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still a fixer. Everyone comes to me with their problems, not just my clients as an attorney or anything like that.
Oh,
because,
yeah, the family, friends.
absolutely.
Yeah.
They all come, there's this and there's, and so they, even if you're at a regular personal function, they're always,
they find their way to you.
They find their way to
it's energetic.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's so energetic.
And I think that's a lovely way to describe how your mornings are, right? You don't use an alarm clock, because I think some of that anxiety when we're being woken up by this blaring thing, and it's time to get up, that's not a great way to start your day, because you're already in anxiety. You're anxious.
Exactly.
Starting it because you have
just
something blaring in your face. It's kind of like that PTSD that you're talking about. And just to kind of piggyback on that, we talked about trauma and you mentioned PTSD, but thinking about PTSD, I usually think of soldiers, that come from army and everything like that. Can you elaborate further how PTSD affects trauma, not just in like veterans or, soldiers at war?
Okay. So PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. And then trauma is pretty much the same thing. We just call it trauma versus post-traumatic stress disorder.
That's a beautiful word, right?
I know. It just, we simplify things.
Right.
And basically, as I mentioned early in reference to the betrayal trauma, it's any time that the brain feels that you've lost control of the reality that you live in. And it doesn't happen to everybody. So I want to clarify that not everybody has PTSD or trauma. And
even ones that go through traumatic episodes, right?
That's correct.
Oh, okay. Yes. That's interesting to know.
And what I have read of what is going to trigger the PTSD in some of us and not in others is, this is the important piece. It's happened to them before. In childhood.
Boom, boom, boom. Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. The generational cycles and patterns that were not broken. We now are reliving because we were not living in truth then. We were not able to stay in control. And now we got to do it the second time around. But this is the beauty. When you start having all these symptoms, it's because now the brain knows that you're finally safe enough and have the resources to actually get the help you need to be set free.
Oh, wow. That is so interesting.
If not, you wouldn't be losing it because your brain will still shove it somewhere.
Something doesn't right. Absolutely.
Suppresses it. And then basically, if you are feeling all these PTSD symptoms, the mind repeating the same stories and not sleeping and all of this other stuff that we mentioned earlier, you've got some signs of PTSD. But you now have the resources to go get the support that you need to get through all of this and heal.
Oh, wow. That is so interesting because, this is why I created this space. We have some hidden traumas that we don't even know, and they just come out if they're not dealt with. Just like with me, my trigger was it's a child coming to my doorstep, right? And that created it was like a rolling stone down a hill, gathering all this moss.
Momentum.
Yes. And I didn't know. I thought I was going crazy. What is wrong with me? That whole over perfectionism, trying to be the perfect person, the perfect daughter, the perfect wife, the perfect everything. And so when a person knows that, they feed on that, right? And so it was just kind of like fuel for them to, for them to keep burning. And so if we don't stand up in truth and transformation and break out of trauma, we're just going to keep repeating those cycles.
That's correct.
And that's why I created Suits and Boots.
And I created Fearless Love. My practice is called Fearless Love, and the book is From Love Trauma to Fearless Love, so that we can learn to love beyond our limits and beyond our fears.
That is so beautiful. And your coaching, that is so wonderful that you're doing with the Tony Robbins. That is so awesome. That is so beautiful. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, you can definitely find me on my website. It's fearlesslove.net. And I do have some YouTube videos and some social media stuff out there. But I do want to offer a free 15-minute consultation to your audience.
Oh, Gianni, that is so beautiful.
Yeah, whether they're looking to break free from a toxic relationship or just finally grow and reparent themselves. As therapists, that's what we get trained for, to reparent our clients.
Absolutely.
And help them to finally embrace love and maturity and peace and balance in their lives. And then as the coach, I'm bringing I have brought that into my practice as well, so that I can empower my clients to go after their vision and mission for their world.
Gianni, that is so beautiful. That is part of the movement and part of the Suit Up and Boot Up. And I thank you so much for joining me. And we can find Gianni. Tell the audience where they can find
fearlesslove.net.
All right, wonderful. And where can they purchase your book?
Oh, on Amazon. Thank you. Yes. From Love Trauma to Fearless Love. If not, just, my name, if you can just put in my name on Amazon as well, Gianni Adamo, but that's Jianny. Adamo, Adamo.
Thank you so much, Gianni. It was such a pleasure. And thank you for teaching us about betrayal trauma, about fearless love. And thank you for being my first guest on Suits and Boots, and, informing the audience about where they need to be. And I thank you for joining me. And I'm being here with Gianni, and she's offering the 15-minute to my clients and to the consult. And she'll be here with me in Suits and Boots as we go through this breaking the chains of trauma. And again, my name is Tshai Wright. I'm an attorney, I'm an advocate, and I want you to join me in breaking the chains of silence and breaking the chains of trauma. Thank you for listening. Suits and Boots.